Good afternoon, my fellow compatriots out there. Welcome to Risers and Fallers, fantasy free agent projections, updates, rankings, all the fun stuff. This is the #1 podcast for women that fly exclusively on Frontier Airlines. Evan, how are we doing today?
I didn't hear that, but I'm glad we won that award. I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited for the draft right now. I'm still eligible for another year, so I'm hoping I get drafted. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so what's the NIL situation looking like for you right now?
I don't think there's any NIL. It's just kind of I get to die for for my country, I guess.
Smooth. I like it.
Yeah,
We got to check out that Frontier situation, and maybe we can get Frontier mixed in as some sort of sponsorship, NIL, all that jazz. So,
that would be good. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't hate Frontier. They're not the worst.
no, they've got the cleanest bathrooms of any airline that flies predominantly in the Northwest of America. All right, we'll hit you guys with the quote of the day, and Evan, I'm going to let you take a stab at who said this because I think you're going to get it.
Okay.
All right, the quote of the day. I don't have a drinking problem. The team has a problem with me drinking. Big difference.
What the hell? Is this a football player?
Football player indeed. Some
Oh
say
man,
some say Mr. Football.
I should probably know that nickname. I don't. To me, this sounds like Brett Favre or something like that.
Johnny Football, Mr.
Oh my
Manziel
god, that's
himself
pretty good too. Yeah, that's
said
pretty good
this
too.
back in 2015. What a guy. He's still
What a
giving us
guy.
content to this day. God bless him.
And
He had a
and now he's got his mentor or his mentee, Diego Pavia, the next Johnny Manziel. A lot of people are saying, including Diego Pavia for some reason.
about every 10 years, one of these guys falls into our life, and I cannot emphasize the fall enough. And we're happy to have him. Think it'd be a lot of fun. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to give you guys a little update on the projections on how free agency has impacted some of the bigger names, some of the bigger signings, and even some under the radar ones. So Evan, before we start, you're our projection superstar. You're our ranking superstar. What goes into your process when you're updating anything that has to do with the fantasy football, hierarchy for our boys?
Yeah, so it always starts with like a high level team based approach,
Mhm.
where it starts with projecting a team's pace, how many plays they're going to run in each game,
Mhm.
and then their dropback rate. What's their pass rate going to be? So that's really important, and those things can change a lot during free agency. Specifically, Malik Willis was a big one that shifted
Yeah.
the Dolphins' dropback rate a lot. So it starts with that kind of stuff that goes into how many plays each team is running, both passes and runs.
Mhm.
Um, and then that feeds into targets and carries and all that kind of stuff. And then we go through and start with for each player on each team. We do carry share, make sure that adds up to 100%. Target
Mhm.
share, make sure that adds up to 100%, and just try to project each player in a median, like 50th percentile,
Yeah.
healthy-ish season outcome is kind of what these should be thought of as.
Gotcha. Now, do you take into consideration ownership and if any drinks might be thrown on fans from the press box during the game and how that might reflect on morale?
I haven't added that as a column yet, but maybe I should. Maybe I should.
Ownership morale score could be an interesting one. Is somebody's mom renovating their home in Florida? That is apparently one of the newer, bigger, more important storylines that we need
Sure.
to take into consideration when a lot of these things. Did a player and his fiance divorce because something crazy happened or break up before the wedding because something crazy happened on her bachelorette party? All this is a new era that we're living in, and these are just modern problems.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm gathering from this conversation is you're still way too online, um, even despite deleting all the social media from your phone.
Yeah, my computer's taking a beating after this one. It's so funny. It's a new computer and it runs like it's like an '01 gateway. It has been painful for numerous reasons. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of today. So we'll start with the big free agent running back additions. And there's some big names, there's some lesser names, but the guy who's making the most money, who we'll start with, is going to be Travis Etienne, who signed with the Saints. Their current backfield, just from a contractual standpoint, is Kamara, who's expected to be a cut, trade, retire candidate.
Yeah.
Kendre Miller, Estime, and Evan Hull are all on the last years of their deal. And then Devin Neal, their very pomp rookie is still on his rookie contract. So how are you feeling about Etienne and how he fits into the good to great RB ecosystem?
I think this is a really good outcome for him, to be honest.
Mhm.
I like the Saints' offensive line for the most part. I think most analysts would probably say that as well.
Mhm.
Um, their Kellen Moore offense has traditionally been very high pace, so they run a ton of plays, and there's just nobody to really compete with them. Devin
Mhm.
Neal's okay; he's a fine backup, I
Yeah,
suppose, but he's not going to be taking any touches from ETN on the basis of Devin Neal's ability. That's for
sure.
sure. So his projection rose for me from 12.1 points per game to 12.8, which puts him in like the RB 15 range, I believe.
Mhm.
It's pretty good. So yeah, it's a solid landing spot for him here.
Yeah.
RB 19. I misspoke.
Sure. No, this is definitely one of those teams where you can see the bones of what their offense wanted to be. They just didn't have the talent to be it last year. Chris Olave had what you some might call a breakout season. I thought, he was already doing versions of that in the previous years. Juwan Johnson, a nice contributor. They just needed two things. They needed better quarterback play, and they need something out of this running back room.
Right.
And they weren't really getting it. They're 31st in EPA per rush. And I think a very large portion of that just happened to be the talent that was in the room, because this is an offensive line that's on the up and up. And they're
Mhm.
even improving with some of their additions right now. So I'm with you. I love this one. I love the bounce back from ETN. And that was the story for him going into last year's offseason, right? It was, this guy is going to thrive in the right circumstances. They just have to kind of be the right circumstances. And that's what separates your good to great RBs from your Jags, or even like we'll just say good guys. So I love that one here. How early would you draft Travis Etienne if you were sitting in, let's say, the rabbit
Hmm.
right now, where Travis Etienne is going as RB 18?
That feels about right to me. Do you have the total overall pick that is?
Pick 37. So he's at that
Gotcha.
3-4 turn.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't seem like the highest upside option there,
Mm,
but I don't hate it at all.
yeah.
That's traditionally just a tough range of the draft
Yeah.
to parse out, and at least you know that ETN has a very good floor. He
Yes.
probably has a great floor relative to the other people he's going around there, I'm sure.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I wouldn't say the ceiling is super high just because he's not like an awesome player. I don't think this offense is gonna be awesome, but
yeah.
if this offense is solid, then he could potentially be like the RB10. I
Mm.
could totally see that.
That's what I sign up for. I spend a very large portion of my year thinking about guys that could be the RB10, and I'm okay with that. That's like I said, that's why I'm here. Jamie's here. Give us some moral support. Jamie, happy to have you as always.
Mhm.
Let's move on to what is probably going to be considered the prize signing of this entire free agency class at any position, and that'll be Kenneth Walker with the Chiefs. He is currently got a backfield. I was surprised to see they were already this thin. He's only there with Brashard Smith and Derek Powell. Those are the only guys they have under contract for 2026. And I mean, notes wise, I just have, if you think that Kenneth Walker is going to play 15 games, this is a early second round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, man, that feels a little bit aggressive to me.
It's aggro.
Um,
I won't shy away from that. It's super
yeah.
aggro.
But don't get me wrong, this is an awesome landing spot. I totally
Mm,
agree with you on that. Kenneth Walker, his points per game projection rose for me from
yeah.
13.6 when I was essentially projecting him as a Seahawk before this,
Mm,
to 14.9 with the Chiefs because I think they're going to feed him more volume than he got in Seattle last year, especially.
yeah.
Although they will probably bring in somebody else, like a Kareem Hunt type, that's nothing special, but can just kind of ease his workload a bit, but he'll have a higher workload than he had in Seattle. The Chiefs' offensive line is pretty solid to
Mm,
potentially good, and I'm also projecting them to be a more run heavy offense this year than they have been in recent years. They've been extremely pass heavy recently with a low A dot, which actually kind of helps Walker because he'll probably be great in the screen game as well. Andy
yeah.
Reid's great at designing those screens. So
Mm,
yeah, this is a big win for Walker. I got him up to RB11 in my projections right now.
mm.
I might even rank him a tiny bit higher than that. So yeah, great spot for him.
It really was. And you can see this is the Chiefs being very cerebral about where their missteps were last year and what they can do,
Yeah.
because they're kind of hamstrung at wide receiver unless they attack it aggressively in the draft. And I think taking Jeremiah Love at 9 would have been bad capital management, in my opinion. And that's not a knock on Love. I love him. Just, what this team needs and how they can get it. So let's spend that in the draft. They were an EPA darling last year from a rushing standpoint. We've talked about this
Right.
on a few shows because it's just the funniest thing. They were the 7th best rushing team last year from a per rush standpoint, but they finished 25th in yards. So everyone's going to discount their attack, and they should. That's not a bad thing to do. And I'll call out, which I'll piggyback on you there. The screen game is going to be huge with Kenneth Walker, which is really where he can be the most effective, if not the only effective from a receiving standpoint. So really like him, really love this fit. I'll ask you here. Fast draft right now, his ADP is currently RB13. He's sandwiched between Bucky Irving and Love. But then I'm looking at guys that are going even 3 or 4 spots ahead of him. And I think I would feel better about Kenneth Walker than I would Derrick Henry, than Chase Brown, and maybe even Ashton Genty.
I agree with you on Genty and Henry, not so much on Chase Brown. I'm very high on Chase Brown right now. In my projections, he's currently RB6. I think I have him ranked a little bit lower than that.
Yeah.
But just the volume is great. The offense is looking great. And, we've talked about how that Cincinnati run game was actually awesome last year, even though it doesn't feel like that. And the Chiefs are a similar way for sure. I do hope that they bring back Kareem Hunt because he is actually really good at like the short yardage, just kind of get what's blocked kind of stuff. I think that's why like the EPA and the success rate look really good for them because they were not getting any explosive runs last year. So Kenneth Walker is going to bring that. So it could potentially, bring their run game into one of the best in the league, up from very good last year. Saw a crazy stat this week that Kenneth Walker had more runs of 25 plus yards in the Super Bowl than the Chiefs had all of last season. So that's a big addition.
That is the kind of stuff that Roger Goodell needs to be made aware of this, and he needs to do what he can to prevent. This was the NBA. Adam Silver wouldn't be having that shit. So I'm happy to hear that. You know what? And they brought back first ballot Hall of Famer for we've interviewed blank to be our offensive coordinator or head coach. Eric Bieniemy is returning to potentially call the shots here. Just a few less State Farm commercials and a few more players on time for meetings, and I think we'll be okay from the Chiefs situation.
Yeah, I think this could actually be a fun fantasy Chiefs year. We haven't had that for a while, but their defense is not in a good place right now, in my opinion. Spags has been able to scheme around a lack of talent, that's for sure, in the past. I'm not 100% sure that continues this year. So it could be a very good year for the Chiefs in fantasy.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Hope so. They're going to be a big, because they're also, I really want to move on, but I just want to say this. They're unfortunately just one of those teams where if you're struggling between 2 or 3 guys in a round and one of those guys is a Chief, you're just going to lean towards them because of what's happened in the past. Now, that's not how you should make decisions, but, or maybe you won't, but someone in your league will. That's just what happens with these kind of like brand teams.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily bad process because we've seen the upside of the Chiefs offense, even if it hasn't been there recently. Like just a couple of years ago, Patrick Mahomes set the record for passing yards. It can happen. So
love it. All right. I know I said when we were talking about this show before we aired that I was going to skew as negative as possible today, but I'm going through these running backs and I really like all the running backs almost. So we might have to wait till we get to the receivers and I can flay some of those catchy boys. Our next guy up, actually, let's get to Jamie real quick. He wanted to know Etienne or Javonte Williams in best ball. I still think I like Etienne here, but if you wanted to lean Javonte, I mean, I guess you're talking about straight up or ADP because ADP wise in fast draft, they're pretty decently far apart. I mean, Etienne's RB18, Javonte's RB23. I know that's not a massive gap. You could even call that the same tier, just different ends of it if you wanted. But I think that speaks to what people are saying about that.
That is way too low for Javonte, in my opinion. I'm taking him over Etienne. I see it as straight up over Etienne. I see that their volume is pretty similar for the most part. They're going to both have like I don't know 70% of their backfield probably. They're not going to be the most efficient running backs in the world, but I just like the Cowboys offense more, and that's going to be my tiebreaker because I think that offense has huge potential, like we saw at points last year. So
I'm going to give you
how I would break the tie in favor of Javonte.
I think that this Pickens honeymoon is about to come just whirling down on this. I think all of the bad juju that this organization has put out into the world over the last 2 or 3 years is about to come swirling down and crashing into them like the Hindenburg. Now, you can't track that analytically. It's more of a gut feel. And I really like Javonte Williams. He'll be somebody I'm targeting as well. I think maybe it just comes down to, yeah, it will be. I think Travis Etienne can be a bigger piece of the pie in New Orleans, but maybe that smaller piece in Dallas weighs more overall because of the floor of the offense. So I certainly see what we're coming back there. So let's move on to our next running back here. J.K. Dobbins signs a 2-year deal with the Broncos that's actually worth more than all of these other contracts, except for the first 2 guys we talked about, sharing a backfield with R.J. Harvey and Tyler Bidet. And basically, I just have my one key note is this is the best thing for anybody that has any stock in any Broncos player. Just run it back. You know what you're going to get. Still very young offense, healthy offensive line, great offensive line, top 5 run blocking unit. We just want him to be healthier. I wonder if you're going to feel similarly.
Yeah, pretty similarly, I would say. I don't know, because I wanted to see them make a significant improvement.
Yeah.
And I really like J.K. Dobbins when he's healthy. Don't get me wrong. I think he's awesome, to be honest. But running it back with Dobbins and Harvey, with the other guys just being, McLaughlin and Beatty or whoever, whatever Sean Payton guy, that's just it's just a little risky to me.
Yeah.
Because we can't rely on Dobbins to play a full season, and we saw how bell cow Harvey went. It did not go well. For fantasy, it was pretty good.
Correct.
But it sucked in real football terms.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of player at all. If Dobbins stays healthy, this is great. If he doesn't stay healthy, I just don't like this for the Broncos. But it is. I will say that them bringing in Dobbins is a win for R.J. Harvey, in my opinion, because the alternative would have been like Walker or Etienne or Allgeier, somebody who's more trustworthy than J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, and this is, you're really, how many times can this guy bounce back from injury and perform at the level that continues to surprise, anybody from diehard fantasy football players to your casual fan? I mean, last year, 7th in true yards per carry and explosive rating, 23rd in expected points per game, 5th most rush yards in the league going into week 11, not going into week 6, not 8, going into week 11. He has under 600 carries in 6 years for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And I mean, his tires may be made of Q-tips, but there's not a lot of tread on them. I just think that right now he's going at RB40 in best ball. I'm sure that'll climb because he's going around Jonathan Brooks, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Dylan Sampson. So it's still early. A lot of these are going to be driven up, driven down. But, if he's able to bounce back in a way like he did in LA, I think this could be another sneaky pick.
Yeah, no, relative to the guys you just mentioned, I think he's an awesome pick for sure. And at least in fantasy drafts right now. Although I will say that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt also might be a great pick.
This is the fun guy range.
A single running back. It's just him. So if they don't get Jeremiah Love, somehow Bill might get through this offseason unscathed. But yeah, anyways, I think we pretty much covered the Broncos running backs. I have Dobbins and Harvey back to back with basically identical projections at this point, right around RB30 in the projections, but they will be ranked higher than that because of the contingent upside for sure, especially Harvey.
Yeah, the Harvey thing is going to be tough because I don't think conditions could have been more perfect for a breakout last year. And I just don't think he did. This is somebody that a lot of people thought coming in with his profile and his age that he should have been more pro ready than he was. And I think you started to see some of the limitations he has just as an overall prospect. So that'll be interesting. This leads right into our next guy here because on our fast draft, you go from Dobbins right into Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, right into my single favorite signing at the position, Kenneth Gainwell, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's get it done. 2 years, $14 million. Shares a backfield, unfortunately, with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, who they bring back on a 1-year tender. Hated that.
Weird.
This team refuses to be normal in just any way. As someone who was drafting Kenneth Gainwell back in 2021 and hating it then, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. What do your projections say about prime Austin Eckler here?
Well, number one, I would rather talk about it from the Bucky Irving perspective. he is
Sure.
fallen. He's fallen significantly. One of the biggest fallers in my projections this week.
Woo.
Just because it was a weird situation where it looked like they might let Tucker walk.
Yeah.
Rashad White wasn't going to come back, but then they
Mhm.
brought in Gainwell, who is just one of the best pass catching running backs in the league. He's going to have a significant
Correct.
role there, getting, I believe, like $7 million per year. He's going to have
Mhm.
a very legit role there, and bringing back Sean Tucker, which was a little unexpected after they didn't tag him or
Yeah.
whatever. It was a weird situation, but Sean Tucker's like awesome in terms of like short yardage stuff, and
Mhm.
has some explosiveness beyond that as well. So Bucky Irving fell from 15.1 points per game to 12.6 in my projections, which dropped him roughly from like RB10 to RB20. So that's a
Yeah.
really big drop.
There was a stretch there in December where Sean Tucker was legitimately subbed in for Bucky Irving at the 1 yard line, 3 straight games, about 7 or 8 times. He converted 3 of those into touchdowns. And we don't have the same guy running the show. Zach Robinson has been brought in. This is an offensive line, did not play a single snap with all 5 of their starters in their original positions last year. It's a unit that a lot of people had at the very least top 3, could be number 1 overall going into 2025, just really banged up. But as far as Kenneth Gainwell goes, I mean, he is the Mike Evans replacement more than he is the Rashad White replacement. 5th in targets last year at the position, 21st in red zone touches, 2nd in points per opportunity, which I love, and then 20th in expected fantasy points per game. Sometimes it is just as simple as running the ball with Bucky, passing the ball with Gainwell, and then every now and then switching those up. And I hope this is a team that can get that simplicity and translate it onto the field, because they, at times last year, they were either overcomplicating things or underutilizing their talent. I hated the combination of things. I like this remodel that they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, I'm still optimistic about the Bucks offense this year for
Mm,
fantasy for the most part. I like Zach Robinson.
yeah,
Baker should be healthy. Um, Although we still haven't heard exactly what happened to him.
no.
It was just a really weird situation last year
Mm,
where he played awesome and then got hurt and then kept playing and played like absolute shit for
yeah.
the rest of the season.
Mm,
So overall positive on the Bucks offense. So I'm not going to completely fade Bucky Irving into the dirt,
mhm.
but it's going to be hard for me to draft him. I think I assume
Yeah,
he'll probably be going higher than RB20, and
yeah.
that's around the range I think he should be going as RB20.
Yeah, I don't think that I think enough has changed, and he was injured enough last year that people are going to look more at his 2024 and how he opened the year last year as weighing more of that equation than kind of the load management they had him under
Yeah,
towards the end of the stretch. They just needed explosives. And I mean, for how good this offense has been at times, they're not exactly an offense that's going to like beat the brakes off of defenders. They're just better at, winning versus man, contested catch, being used in the slot. That's how they were most effective under Canales, Cohen, and even parts of Grizzard last year. I think that Gainwell can do that. He can run you over. He can run around you. Bucky's just going to make you miss. He's not necessarily going to blow by you for a 50, 60 yarder. It's not his game. So hopefully, this is indicative of a team that knows where their missteps were and how to correct them.
yeah. Thinking about it more, would you
Mm.
be totally floored if Gainwell was the better fantasy running back this year?
No, this team has beaten the inner child out of me over the last 20, 30 years, and there's nothing that they can do that would surprise me at this point. Zach Robinson, he wasn't afraid to mix, Allgeier in there with Bijan. Now, Bijan definitely broke out, don't get me wrong, but there were times where Allgeier was the hot hand for maybe even halves at a time. And we saw that in Pittsburgh as well with Gainwell and Warren. So there's a recent track record of that being on the table if Bucky is not really able to, wrestle back this committee into more of a workhorse role.
Yeah, I think
Mm,
Gainwell is probably going to be an awesome pick in fantasy this year.
mm.
Do you have his ADP at the ready potentially?
We're looking at RB 44. He's going at pick 136 overall. And I think he's going to jump so many
Yeah,
of these guys. I really do.
for
I
sure.
mean, I hope he doesn't, because I'm going to be targeting him in every single draft. But it's a really free agency kind of screwed over what I would call any shot at a lot of these guys being just workhorse backs. I mean, Etienne and Walker, yeah, but the rest of them are just like, let's just add to the mud.
Yeah. So right now I have Gainwell projected around RB 35. but that's not factoring in just some huge contingent upside.
Yeah.
If Bucky was to go down, or he might just eclipse Bucky. I think that is
Mhm.
potentially on the table. Bucky did not play that well last year,
Yep.
and Gainwell played very well. I'm not
Mm.
I'm not expecting that to happen, but it is a potential outcome that should be
Yeah,
factored into where he gets drafted. So
it is.
I really like Kenneth Gainwell. This is a pretty good landing
Mm.
spot for him, I think.
Tiz, and the chat has got different feelings on all these players. Jay is surprised Tucker didn't get signed. Yes, I
Agreed.
thought he
Yeah.
was gonna be I thought he was gonna be, maybe with the J.K. Dobbins, maybe not the
Mhm.
value of the contract, but I thought that's the role that he was gonna have. Yeah, this is what they were kind of rocking at last year. He needs help though. He needs cope
Oh,
with his Caleb Johnson shares, and this is a perfect
yeah.
time because Jay, my next running back teed up for Evan was Rico Dowdle, Steelers. Backfield right now consists of Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. And my number one note is I don't really know how to feel about this. So I'm going to kick it to Evan and stall while I try to come up with something better. Evan, where does Rico fit in the backfield? And is it good night, see you later to Caleb Johnson?
For this year, yeah, I think so, unless there's an injury. This really sucks for Caleb Johnson. He's one of the biggest fallers in my
Mm,
rankings.
mm,
His projection wasn't super high to begin with, but fell by over 3 points per game in my projections, and only a few players were below that. One of which is Alvin Kamara, which barely counts.
yeah.
And Kamani Vidal, who cares? But yeah, man, this is brutal. This clearly shows that they don't believe in Caleb Johnson at all.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. I thought that they would want to give their third round running back a chance. And I guess they just don't. They don't care. Uh,
They really
yeah,
don't. When Mike Tomlin said we do not care, that was coming from that's a top-down organizational mindset that is making its way right into
yep,
here. And I mean, the ADP ranks are interesting. Warren is still getting that what I think is a deserved bump. He leads the way at RB 25. He's 72nd overall. Scroll down a little bit, you get Dowdle at RB 33, and I mean, Dowdle went from being like fantasy Muhammad last year to being recast in the Najee Harris role that Jalen Warren was stuck with in the previous 2 seasons before. I mean, this is not a player
yeah,
that can perform, I don't think, like Kenneth Gainwell could stylistically. I understand why you would bring in a guy that can just like move the chains, get you 4 yards if you need 4 yards. I just would have, I don't know, this team will have to be run based given their available QB options, but their coaching hire suggests they want to be pass based. And I don't know where one of these guys is going to lose ground, and I don't know who it's going to be.
yeah. So they're gonna bring in Aaron Rodgers. They're gonna run the
Mm,
Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy offense, in my opinion. It'll
yeah.
probably be a lot more pass heavy than last year, but not the kind of pass heavy we like. It's just gonna be fucking back shoulder fades of 5
Oh,
yards
mhm.
and check downs to the running back, which is probably just gonna be Jalen Warren. So I thought this was a kind of a win for Warren in a way because
Yeah.
he should be able to take a lot of that Kenneth Gainwell pass catching work, which was
Yeah.
really valuable in fantasy last year.
Mhm.
But it was also a negative in a way because I didn't think that they would bring in a running back as good as Rico Dowdle.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a surprise, which knocked down Jalen Warren's rushing projection, but the receiving projection went up significantly. I
Yeah.
also saw this as a loss for Rico Dowdle because Jalen Warren is established. He's going to be the pass catching back there.
Mhm.
He has to be, in my opinion.
Yeah. I definitely am with you. I thought they were going to go with like a Rashad White, a Jerome Ford,
Sure.
somebody like that. And they were smart last year because when you had Warren or Gainwell on the field, it didn't tip the play at all. I mean, they were both able to perform either duty very well, and I don't think they're going to have that this year. But maybe that's not what they want because Mike McCarthy is not as he's a little bit more grounded mentally than Arthur Smith is. Although I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I also want to shout you out for being the first person I think on a fantasy podcast to say the term pass happy with a negative connotation. It's usually the best thing we can hear in this industry, and we finally are able to turn it into a pessimistic phrase. So I appreciate that.
There's been I can't think of a single offense that's less fun to watch than last year's Pittsburgh Steelers, especially like the second half of the season
Yeah.
when they got rid of like the Arthur Smith stuff.
Mhm.
That's actually good, by the way. I want to say that again for the record.
Mhm.
Arthur Smith is good. This offense for the Steelers is probably going to be worse this year, because they don't have Arthur Smith scheming up the run game,
Mhm.
and like the play action stuff that actually worked last year when
Mhm.
Rodgers was willing to run it. But
Yeah.
he's not going to be running any of that shit this year.
No.
It's just going to be shotgun,
Mhm.
catch the ball, and immediately throw a back shoulder fade to Michael Pittman.
Mhm. And let's give some quick flowers here to Rico Dowdle, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons on 2 different teams. Be cool if he made it third, although I don't think it's gonna happen. Steelers' offensive line on the upswing as well,
Yeah,
but just not a team I think I'm gonna find myself with a lot of shares of this year.
I agree. I don't see a ton of upside in either of these players, unfortunately, unless one of them was
Yeah.
to go down, which could
Mhm.
happen for sure.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna cover a sneaky running back, and then we're gonna hit the wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks if they're time. So we'll see you guys in just a sec.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams. And then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs. And then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide, $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
Boom, boom, boom. Dynasty Deluxe has been there for me when I need it and will continue. Hope you guys are taking advantage of all the tools we continue to put out for you to win those leagues. Now, let's talk about what I think is going to be the most disappointing signing for 2026, but was maybe the best dynasty signing. And that's going to be Tyler Allgeier going to the Cardinals. Currently, their backfield consists of James Conner and Trey Benson. I feel all kinds of weird about this one. ADP will probably determine 100% of how much I draft him this year. Where are you projections wise for Tyler Allgeier?
Yeah, this is a really weird one to figure out, man. It
Mhm.
really is. I do think that if we just look at the money here, clearly they don't believe in Trey Benson, first of all, because they decided to
Yeah.
keep James Conner. They restructured him so that they're only paying him like $3 million this year, though. So I don't think they believe in James Conner that much either. And then they bring in Algier over both of them. So how I'm kind of seeing it right now is they want Algier to be their one, and they might really want Algier to be their one potentially. There is some upside for significant volume here, although the way I'm projecting it is Algier maybe 50%, and then the other two combined for the other 50%.
Mhm.
Um, this was a win relatively for Algier, I thought, just
Yeah.
because of the landing spot I think is solid. It could be an interesting offense this year, and also just the money tells you that they want to give him volume as well.
Yeah. This is a committal to a guy that they think, a commitment to a guy that they think can probably be more than he has. And I get that. You know, middle of the pack run blocking unit might get a new boost from the staff, from the new staff, might regress. Not sure. It was kind of a chicken or the egg thing there.
Yeah,
James Conner definitely still a thing. Can't say the same for Benson. I was really hoping he was going to go to like Seattle, a Denver, a
me too.
KC, a Washington. I thought would all
Yeah,
of these I thought would have been great spots
yep.
for redraft best ball. He's only 25, so if he ends up being their guy, like just a younger version of what James Conner was originally when he came to Arizona and had that
Hmm.
awesome 4-year stretch that he just had. That would be great. They do have a lot of ascending young talent that should hopefully put them in the red zone much more than they have been in years past. Hopefully, a more young, exciting QB comes in. This year is going to be tough because it's going to be a devil's threesome between Brissett and Minshew. I'm telling you guys right now, Gardner Minshew will start games, and
Yep.
it's going to suck.
Yep.
And it's not, and it's a reason. It's conjuring up similar vibes to how I feel about the Steelers, just on like the complete opposite side of the coin. Is it's going to be hard to pony up for these ADPs when that's a realistic possibility.
Yeah, very true. Oh, it's yeah, that part of it does suck, the
Mm,
Minshew part of it. But Algier, yeah, this is a really weird one, man. I think that
mm,
probably James Conner and Trey Benson are going to be bad picks in my opinion, just because we don't know which one this new regime actually is going to like. I think it'll be Connor over Benson, but I'm not 100% on that. So you probably shouldn't be drafting 3 running backs from the Cardinals. So I don't know. The way I'm seeing it is the only one worth talking about is Tyler Allgeier.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can get more of a pass catching role. I think he should be able to, because he's not competing with Bijan anymore.
Yeah.
Who's just one of the best pass catching running backs in the league because he's the best at everything. And Allgeier is like actually just a really good pass blocker, I believe. So he should be able to stay on the field a lot. I think there is some chance for a real upside here, just because of I could see him getting a Bijan type role. He's not going to put up those kind of numbers, obviously, but he could have a giant role. That is in play for him. So depending on where his ADP ends up, he could be a very good pick, just based on volume, even if the efficiency isn't necessarily there because of the Minshew mania. Yeah,
this is definitely one that has. I think I'm going to steal from one of my other lines in the show, but I'm going to borrow from my other players. The floor here is like a carnival ride. I just am having a lot of trouble pinpointing where it's going to end up, because it could be really high. It could be really, really freaking low. I agree. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But
yeah, I guess we talked about Allgeier's upside, but we should mention that there's a chance that this is just the grossest backfield ever as well. This could just be a 30-30-30 split that is on the table as well.
Oh God, I haven't seen one of those in a minute. I would welcome that with open arms for having the content cycle. All right, let's move on to wide receivers, which was the most disappointing POS signings I can ever remember calling from a free agency cycle. I hate all of them. All of them have varying degrees of value, but I will let the projections speak for themselves. Let's start with the most money here. Alec Pierce returns to the Colts. His only real target competition remains Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. There's a universe here where this is the sexiest signing that could have been done. But just considering the circumstances, I just don't feel it. It's like a restaurant that's going out of business and they're trying all these crazy promos like free Fireball Shot Friday or something like that. Just anything to pull customers back in. What do the rankings and the projections tell us?
I thought that this was a win for Alec Pierce. I was expecting this relatively, that he was going to come back to the Colts and Michael Pittman would leave. That's still a good option for him, though. He's going to see a higher target share, that's for sure. I do think that Alec Pierce is significantly overpaid. He's a fun player, but gosh, 30 million is kind of crazy for somebody who had 47 catches last year, and that was his career high, I believe. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I have him at wide receiver 22 in the projections. I don't see a ton of upside just because of Daniel Jones coming off an Achilles. It's not going to be a super high upside passing offense, I should say. But this is a win for Alec Pierce. It's a win for Josh Downs as well.
Big time. Yeah, it's going to add that element that I think a lot of these other signings are missing from the free agency, which is just top level explosion. And I'm glad we get to see the fully realized form of it too, with Pittman moving on to Pittsburgh. I think that'll be really exciting. So just a lot of fun there. The stage has been set for him to be the guy. Now it comes down to two things, right? Can he do it? And then is the actual infrastructure there for him to do it, which would really depend on the health of Daniel Jones and the ability to, they're asking Alec Pierce to be somebody that I don't think we've seen him be yet. And I think you really highlighted that point when you started talking about these projections.
Yeah. And I want to mention that there is a chance he's not the Colts wide receiver 1. Josh Downs is really fucking good, man. He's awesome. He's like one of my favorite players in the league. So maybe I'm biased, but Josh Downs can do everything. And I think he's a better wide receiver than Alec Pierce. If you ignore, obviously he's tiny, so the run blocking is going to suck. But if they do keep Josh Downs on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, he could go to the fucking moon, man. I'm just warning you now.
Hey, I will accept your warning, and I will keep it in mind when I'm on the clock and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Alec Pierce, who is, for all intensive purposes, let's see what the ADP has given us. He is wide receiver 30. He doesn't even have a profile picture on Fast Draft. That's the level of disrespect that he's getting. He's in a very precarious spot here, and he's sandwiched in between. Where'd you go? He's sandwiched in between DK Metcalf and Jalen Waddle. That's a range. And Brian Thomas Jr. What a range. There's a wide receiver. There's a flavor here for everybody out there.
Yeah, I think he's probably a good pick around there actually.
Mhm,
Considering I have him 8 spots higher than his ADP right now in the
mhm,
projections, and he's just a best ball kind of guy. He
mm.
is not a guy that I want in my lineup leagues. At least if I have to make a decision on whether to start Alec Pierce or sit him every week,
Yeah,
that decision is brutal
mhm,
because he's one of these, the 22 yards per reception.
yeah,
Those kind of guys are going to be very difficult to predict on a week by week basis.
it is.
Um,
Yeah, and
I
that's you're
see
gonna see that.
Slayer Stacker talking some shit about Josh Downs in the chat. I get it. I do. Last year there was a lot of hype about
Yeah,
Josh Downs going into last year, and he took a step back
mhm,
because the snaps went down and Alec Pierce broke out, of course.
mhm.
But for Josh Downs, it all comes down to can he stay on the field? If he can, then he's going to be really good. He's always been very good when he's on the field, but he struggles to stay on the field because of his size. And some coordinators care about that, some don't. It seems that Steichen does care about that. So we can't 100% say that it's going to happen for Josh Downs, but the ceiling, if it does happen, is still awesome.
Awesome indeed. Let's hope for it. He got the money for it. That's what we're going to be looking forward to. The guy who got the second most money, at least on a annual basis for this year coming in, Wan'Dale Robinson to the
Oh
Titans.
God.
Titans just gobbling up former
Oh,
Giants. They also signed Daniel Bellinger. I could not be any less interested in this addition, which sucks because I think it makes sense for them. They had the cap space to have fun. Could even have some value if certain factors break that way. If Cam Ward jumps his game up and the offensive line can stop performing like they were out on Broadway at 3 a.m. every Saturday before game time. This could be PPR Palooza again, just like in 2024 with Dayball. He even showed last year, I think, Wan'Dale, that is, that he could be a down the field threat. Cam Ward seemed like all he wanted to do last year was throw down the field. So there's potential for this to be interested. Now, I probably sounded like I'm excited about this, but I'm like 5% in all the way across the board on this one. It's going to be more often than not a big pass for me.
yeah, this is a tricky projection situation for me just because I I refuse to believe that they walk into week 1 with Wan'Dale Robinson as their wide receiver 1, right?
Mm.
There's no way.
Yeah.
They at least have to add a wide receiver 2,
Yeah.
like behind him because their current room is just so bad. I mean, I guess that this might be a win for Alec Manor just because
Mhm.
he might still live. Uh, God, man,
True. It's true.
this just this sucks as far
Yeah.
as I don't think that I can't really put much faith in this offense. Dable's fine. I don't have anything against Dable really. I don't
Mm.
think Wan'Dale is anything special though. And God, they really need weapons. They lost Chig, who was potentially one of their best weapons as well. Their best, literally their best weapons right now are Wan'Dale Robinson, Chimere DK, and Gunnar Helm. Those are their best pass catchers. And Tajay Spears, I guess, but it's really bleak, man. It really is.
Bleak indeed. Which, when situations are bleak, it makes guys like this look a little rosier. You're able to squint and say somebody has to catch the ball. I think in the last several years, we've seen that fallacy kind of rise to the surface a little bit more with a lot of guys just failing to, maybe they were the guy who caught the most balls, but maybe it was about 20% less than projections might have had, or even what you were envisioning in your head when you're pulling these guys out. And the chat's kind of with us there. Say, well, so much for Alec. Yep. They could just use DK instead of paying Wan'Dale and got right. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
I
Exactly.
could. Yeah, this is it's a stopgap for a team that is like, I don't know, 6 months behind on their mortgage. Like they need way more than just a stopgap. And then they can
Just
see what else are
just
the
go get
Jets.
Romeo Dobbs. Romeo Dobbs would have been such a better signing for the same
Mm,
money than Wan'Dale Robinson because
yeah.
he can actually play X receiver, and that's something that's really hard to find. Right now, their X receiver is Alec Manor, which
Mm.
sucks.
Let's use that as a transition because I had Dobbs next on my list, and I'll tell you what, I maybe these teams should have switched because I hate this signing for the Patriots.
Tell me
The
why.
only target competition they have is Booty and Pop Douglas and Hunter Henry. I get that. Love somebody like the Patriots love paying a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 1 money. Evan, you're wearing the Seahawks cap right now. Did you watch that Super Bowl and think, thank God this team doesn't have a Romeo Dobbs, or else this would be you might not be wearing it right now. You might still be mourning. Who knows? I'll let you do the projections and how you feel, and then I'll hit you with my my pessimism.
Yeah, I definitely was not thinking that during the Super Bowl. But I will say that replacing Diggs with Dobbs is not the worst thing in the world.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's weird because on a per route basis, Steph Diggs is way better,
Mhm.
but he's getting up there in age for sure. And Dobbs can play every snap, and he's a good run blocker. That matters as well. So I don't totally hate it from the Patriots' perspective because he is a well-rounded, trustworthy wide receiver. Now, for fantasy purposes, I just really have no interest in any of these receivers except maybe some Kayshon Boutte in best ball only. But
Mhm.
in redraft leagues, I can't really see myself drafting any of these receivers.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, right? I think that it's just like, I don't know how differently I feel about this team now than I did last year. And you know what? Most of what they did worked up until 60 minutes of football to close the season. From a fantasy perspective, I don't think that, I think between the quarterback they have, between the offensive mastermind that they have, and just their approach to team building, I just don't think there's a dude to be had here. Like Stephon Diggs barely cracked 1,000 yards on 102
Yeah.
targets. And it was really only because he's the only guy that started 17 games. Otherwise, the target distribution on this team is much more fragmented. And I just don't think things will be any different for Dobbs than they were in Green Bay, where he was maybe a nice week to week asset for certain stretches. But overall, I just think he's a lesser value than what the money says. And I understand that they had a gap they needed to fill with moving on from Diggs. He didn't cost that much in the grand scheme of things, and he's certainly not a bad player. I'm not knocking on him. I just think that this is a team that needed a tier above him, and I think people are going to take him and put him in a production estimation for that tier above him when he's going to produce where he has been, or maybe even beneath it.
Yeah, I think we mostly agree on this. He
Mm,
does project somewhat well, but he is not
mm.
the kind of guy that has much upside beyond that.
Yeah,
As we mentioned with other players that do have that upside, Romeo Dobbs is the opposite.
yeah.
He's going to project well, but the upside's not really going to be there. Currently have him wide receiver 42 in projections, which doesn't sound good, but it really
Mm,
is kind of good when you listen to the other
yeah.
people around him, like Jaden Reed, Josh Downs, Ricky Pearsall, and one Jalen Waddle, who
Mm.
I currently have at wide receiver 44 in the projections. That's pretty brutal.
Oh God, you know what though? He earned every second of it. I'll tell you that. Romeo Dobbs, if you guys are trying to take advantage of some ADPs here and you're trying to take advantage of him now, he's going at wide receiver 59 in fast draft in the rabbit right now. So I'm hopping on there and I am smashing that. He's going behind Josh Downs. He's going behind Xavier Worthy. He's going behind Matthew Golden. So for the most part, I think it will
Yeah,
end up being pretty good.
that's a good pick for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here to what do we got? Let's pop in the chat real quick here. Chat can hit us with a 27 pick. We're talking. This is why I like our chat. Chat's always trying to help out. They're trying to throw in a little bit of dynasty magic, and that's what happens when you come to our shows. We're trying to support everybody from the ground up.
Yeah. JP, I like the John Mechie signing too. It was a good flyer. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, that's going to be a team where outside of McMillan, I'm going to be able to convince myself that everybody there is going to be able to contribute. So
I
I like.
will say that I think one winner of free agency, a sneaky winner, is Jalen Coker,
Mhm.
who they did bring in two receivers, but they were David Moore and John Mechie.
Yeah.
So no one of substance, and I don't think they're going to draft anyone of substance either. Although I
Mhm.
have seen some mocks go that route in the first round, I
Yeah.
just don't see it. So Jalen Coker is a small winner for me.
Boom. Love it. Guy's making his way onto the list, wasn't even on here. All right, let's move on to Rasheed Shaheed, who we have been kind of wish casting to the Seahawks for weeks now, and it does end up happening. His only target competition is JSN, and not a lot of notes. I love what a full season acclimated with Darnold and his role in this offense can be. I know that they've moved on from their coordinator, but they're basically running it back from a familiarity standpoint. He doesn't need to be a high target earner, just a high value target receiver. And I think he can continue to be that. How do you feel?
Another guy who is probably only worth talking about in best ball. In redraft leagues, he's just not very interesting
Yeah.
because again, it'll be very hard to predict on a week by week basis. unless you have return yards, which that's pretty awesome. I like leagues with return yards. Playing a lot of those. But yeah, I thought this was a great signing for the Seahawks. We needed to keep one of him or Walker. I probably would have preferred Walker, but I don't hate the Shaheed route either. He's a much better wide receiver than he showed with the Seahawks last year. We didn't quite get him acclimated properly. But he really opened up the offense in a way, I believe. Over like towards the end of the season when Darnold wasn't playing like total shit. The passing offense was good.
He stepped up, and he's going right now on Fast Draft. He's going as wide receiver 78. Obviously, his signing was not been baked into this yet. Him and Marvin Mims continue to be brothers from another mother in their pairings. It's who he's sitting next to right now.
Yeah, in my projections, I have him at wide receiver 54. Nothing crazy, but that's right around Wan'Dale Robinson, Jordan Addison. These are good receivers. Is anything, if you want to take away one thing from this wide receiver bit, it's that wide receiver is stupid deep this year. It just doesn't make any sense. Like I really like Jaden Higgins. He's at wide receiver 58 in my projections.
This is one of those years where I'm going to play. It's a give and take. I'm going to play more best ball this year than I did last year in managed redraft leagues. And that's kind of how I try to go in it. And I don't tell my wife anything like that, but for the most part, that's going to be how we walk. It's interesting to go 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers before we talk about the guy that's going to be on the cover thumbnail of this episode. And that's going to be Mike Evans going to the 49ers. His target competition is just one person, and that one person is a Megatron version of like Kittle, CMC, and Pearsall, fused into one being. Just a big, deep exhale for me on this one, because I feel as optimistic about this one, and I also feel as bad about this one as I do any of these other signings.
Talk about it. I mean, Mike Evans is your guy. You've watched him for his entire career. Let's hear your take.
Okay, so I know what they're doing, right? This is their Davante Adams answer. This is exactly what they were going for. I completely understand it. His game is aged very well. He's not just like a throw it, F it, Mike Evans is down there somewhere guy. He's become a great tactician. You can move him all around the field, and he's always going to be that ball winner, especially in the red zone. I just do not think the combination of his health and the team that he's going to is going to be something that you can rely on. He has had a lower body injury 4 straight years. He has missed game after game. And even games that he started, he has not been able to be the same guy. And we started to see those slipping coming last year. And the problem really with all this is going to end up being, I would love him if he was going like wide receiver 30, wide receiver 35. But I just know when the season comes around, he's going to be going up there like wide receiver 20, wide receiver 21, maybe even higher than that. I mean, if you're in a draft and you're looking at Devonta Smith at wide receiver 18, wouldn't you just rather take Mike Evans there anyways? Maybe, maybe not, but that's the kind of thing you'd have to consider.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to figure out, because you're absolutely right. He's going to miss games this year. It's just a matter of trying to predict how many, which is not a fun exercise for me at all. I currently have him at wide receiver 28 in the projections, which is right around Luther Burden, Jordan Tyson. These guys obviously have more upside, although Mike Evans has upside as well. If he could stay healthy, there could be some big potential here. But I'm also just factoring in a little bit of age as well. We haven't seen a great Mike Evans season in a while. And I'm not sure that it's still in there, even though this is a very good fit. I do like the signing for the 49ers. But you're absolutely right that, and what are the odds he stays healthy? It's really low.
The last time that they had a receiver that I believe they're going to use like Mike Evans was 2023 Brandon Ayuk. And that's when every single, I think, remember like the first 10 weeks, every one of his passes either went for a first down or a touchdown. It was a crazy, crazy run he was on. He was still only getting per game. I'm looking at it right now. 6 targets a game, 7 targets a game, 3, 4, 7, 4, 9, 5, 7. And he was 25 years old. I think with the addition to Pearsall, whatever's going to happen with Kittle, I can't say for sure. They're bringing back Tonjes. CMC will continue to be, for whatever he's lacking in the rushing department, he'll continue to be a black hole from a receiving standpoint. I just think that this is maybe a little bit better version of DeAndre Hopkins going to the Titans. I hate to say that, but that's how I feel.
I could see it. I will say the 49ers are not the Titans. there is
They got Paula.
there is definitely yeah, that's true. That is very true. There is the upside for Mike Evans this year would come from him scoring 15 touchdowns, like a
Yes,
Devontae Adams of last year. That
correct.
can totally happen. I don't think
Yeah.
the volume upside is there, but he could definitely score 15 touchdowns. So you have to think about drafting him at least.
Straight up, Ibuka or Mike Evans?
Oh, like Buka, not close.
Love
I love it.
CTE Buka. Yes. Good call like that. All right, I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay. Mike Evans or Luther Burden?
Burden.
Nice. Okay. So the ADP is shaking itself out pretty nicely then. All right. That feels good. You know what? Let's answer that actually. Who you got as wide receiver 1 this season in Chicago? Burden seems to have the chemistry over Caleb. I'm taking Colston Loveland, but if we're just going pure wide receiver here, I think I still like Rome from a target earning standpoint. You know, I do feel, I hate to be this lazy, but it really does feel like Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams-ish.
So right now it's interesting. I have Burden projected higher in fantasy, but Rome Odunze getting significantly more targets actually.
Yeah.
23% target share to Burden's 19%. But you factor in efficiency and Burden's ability on the ground as well, and that moves him ahead of Rome Odunze in fantasy purposes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I am as well as far as like rankings. I do like Burden. Everybody likes Burden. I'm probably going to be below consensus if I had to guess.
Yeah.
And maybe ahead of consensus on Rome Odunze. We'll see. That's how I am in Dynasty. We'll see how the redraft ADP shakes itself out. But right now I have Burden as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, even though Odunze will be like their wide receiver 1 in spirit.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, there was kind of, you're seeing that with a lot of teams right now. And I think that, you know, they're finally going to be able to decompress a little bit and breathe, which I think will be nice. And just how things go will be fun. So we've got a couple more here that I do want to talk about. And then Evan, I don't know, we're bumping up against the hour mark here. Maybe we save the tight ends and quarterbacks for another time. Maybe we do a part 2 of this because we still have some guys that haven't been signed, you know, at running back. How much juice can we squeeze out of Joe Mixon, Michael Carter, Rachaad White? At wide receiver, Jawan Jennings hasn't signed. Where does Debo and Tyreek and Mooney and Kirk go? So let's wrap up these 2 wide receivers here, and maybe we'll get on our way because I like both of them potentially. Jalen Naylor to the Raiders.
Hell yeah.
He was one of your sneaky signings when we did our episode last week. His only target competition is really Brock Bowers. I think he's going to be the hipster draft pick of the year. His best comp on Player Profiler, which I love, you guys have Sterling Shepard. And I think that's so apropos for who he can be, what his role will be on this Raiders offense, especially with a young, talented quarterback. You're gushing over him, I imagine, in some way, shape, or form.
I'm loving this for sure. I will say that his projection and ranking will be heavily dependent on what else they do at wide receiver. Because if they walk in with this receiver room, oh my God, Jalen Naylor to the moon. But I am expecting them to bring in somebody ahead of him to where Naylor is really like their third target, which would still be a step up for him for sure. And I think he would be great in that role. Potentially interesting in best ball if that's the way it goes as well. But if they don't bring in a wide receiver 1 ahead of him, my God, that would just be beautiful.
Yeah, it's not a crime to not be as good as Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. He was top 10 last year in yards per reception, contested catch rate. Just a spunky guy who had nice spurts. And last year, gosh, this Raiders team, 92 targets for Trey Tucker. Bowers is in there with injury. Ashton Genty's in there a little bit. But then you get down to 34 for Tyler Lockett, 30 for Deontay Thornton, 29 for Jack Besh. And most of these guys played 15, 16 games. Just really, really could not ask. It's actually shocking in retrospect how more people didn't have the Raiders pegged for any of these big wide receivers because they might have had the biggest need of any team we've talked about today or will continue to talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, as far as the worst wide receiver rooms from last year, it was them. It was the Giants without Malik Neighbors. It was the Titans. And the Raiders definitely didn't address it in the best way. I would have liked somebody better than Jalen Naylor. Let me be clear. But I do really like Jalen Naylor as well. So hopefully they draft one. That would be nice.
Pair Fernando with some Cooper here. Might let the sparks fly.
If they get Omar Cooper or Elijah Surratt, I like both those guys a lot. That would be awesome. Kind of a perfect fit as well.
that would be nothing you could stick to the state of Ohio more than being the new Joe Burrow and the new Jamar Chase. That would be a lot of fun. I've got another one on here that Evan, this is more like I actually need you to tell me how to feel. And that's going to be Olamide Zaccheaus to the Falcons.
What the fuck?
Now, there's not a lot of room to breathe at a table that is consists of Bijan and London and Pitts, but we're also talking about guys with outside of Bijan with checkered injury history, to say the least. I always like a fourth guy because I just feel like they're able to be a third guy for maybe 6, 7, 8 games, depending on the offense. And I like the coaching staff here. So is this a guy that is getting paid off of one touchdown catch and I shouldn't think about, or is he like a sneaky 18th round pick?
I guess maybe 18th round. I wouldn't hate it. To be honest, I don't, I'm thinking about the rabbit. So 15th round in the rabbit, no way. But potentially 18th round, sure. They did also bring in Jahan Dotson. Both those guys are not going to get there, but one of them might. Is where I'm at right now. Zaccheaus, he's fine. He's a solid receiver. I don't exactly know why we're talking about him right now.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I was just going through the guaranteed money he got put him in that range.
Did he get? I didn't see what he got.
Where are you? Spo track here. Come on back. We got signed, and we're looking at wide receivers. He got. Oh, it's not updated yet. The terms haven't been released, but the other guys that were on here that I weren't interested in talking about were like Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, Khalif Raymond. I just saw him, and I saw, basically because that position is up for grabs, right? That wide receiver 2 on the Falcons is with the Mooney release and Ray McLeod. What is he doing? He's starring in like B movies in Pakistan or something right now. I don't remember what happened to him, but he's gonzo. So just opportunities that are afoot.
But also, we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, which is that their quarterback room is Michael Penix and Tua. It's not going to be like why do we care about their wide receiver 2?
When the Dolphins had a healthy Tyreek. Okay, who's better? I put this on Twitter today. Who's better? And everybody's healthy, and the Dolphins are in 2023. Tyreek, Waddle, and Etienne, or Bijan, London, and Pitts?
That's really tough. Man, it is.
All right, it's a tricky one because the edge you would give Bijan the edge. You would probably have London equal or lesser than peak Tyreek in 2023.
Tyreek.
And then you'd give, pick your poison with Waddle or Pitts. I mean, what we saw from Pitts last, I'd say, but we haven't seen that Pitts a whole lot. So,
I think I would rather have Bijan. I would rather have Bijan, London, and Pitts just because they are more like well-rounded players that you don't have to scheme up. Like they're not. That Miami offense was super goofy. It was just all speed. The Falcons are much more well-rounded.
I just wonder if, Tua led the league in passing in 2023. Granted, it was the lowest single season passing leader in like 25 years. But
and he finished his quarterback 19 in fantasy that year.
It's very bad. Just fun things that I when I can't sleep at night because the demons are torturing me, I think about. So, guys, keep an eye on the radar.
Let's save it for the next episode that we talked about. We could talk about quarterbacks and all these other free agents that haven't signed yet as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll do like a 30-minute mini release episode some other time. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time and your energy and your comments as much as anybody. Jamie wants to know, would you rather have London or the 101? I think I'd rather have the 101, but
that's tough.
That is tough.
Yeah, I believe I have them like back to back in the Dynasty rankings right now. I'm kind of leaning toward Love right now. Yeah. Because of the quarterback, the whole Tua of it, to be honest.
Of course, the Tua of it all. That's fun. All right, Evan, what do you have going on and where can they find you?
PlayerProfiler.com, baby. We got a lot of projections and rankings updates coming probably early next week, hopefully. Reacting to all this free agency news. And then besides that, Fast Draft, we'll actually be launching a new tournament today for beginners, specifically a free tournament for beginners. So check that out as well. The Rabbit is live. We'll be launching several more tournaments in the next week as well. So big time for Fast Draft. Go sign up.
Love it. This is my favorite time to do it because there's so many avenues that you can take advantage of. Once the picture gets clearer, that's when the normies can take advantage of it. So get a jump on them. Thank you, everybody. Again, as always, I am Chuck Bass. We will see you next week on Risers and Fallers.